I've been looking forward to doing this Q&A video because I really feel like I need to explain myself as to where NLW is going. Is it ending? Is it not ending? Just to clear things up in your minds. Obviously I tried to answer as many questions as I could. Some were the same, so I may have missed a couple out, but I'm sorry in advance if I didn't answer your question. If I didn't, you can ask it again in the comments if you want, and I'll try and answer as best I can. But I feel the best place to start is to answer the questions on, is NLW ending or not? The reason that there's not going to be any more weekly episodes is essentially the fact that I basically don't have the time anymore. I'm going to be going to university soon, and that'll be taking up most of my time. And also I feel like I'm becoming addicted to it, if that makes sense. I'm making so many episodes because I really do enjoy doing it, but I feel I need to take a break anyway. So because of limited time, I can't do it weekly anymore, but I will hope to get some videos out, just not as frequently. So after WrestleMania 3, there may be a month or two break. WrestleMania 3 will be like the biggest show I've ever done to this point, and it'll be a huge finale, it'll end, and then hopefully 1 or 2 months after WrestleMania 3 ends, I'll start bringing out episodes, maybe monthly, but the way I want to continue it is sort of like a hybrid of pick fed and stop motion that I can get episodes out, but it's not as time consuming to make. So I've got a plan to do like a weekly write-up maybe on the website, use my Twitter and my Instagram more frequently so that I can update on storyline progression, and then save full matches for like special events. So these episodes I'll write up, I'll do a couple of pick feds, maybe a couple of stop motion highlights, and then special events which I can take more time on, if that makes sense. The reason I don't do episodes in one big part is because I feel like, and this is no offense, but you know, attention span for most people isn't, you know, a lot. And for me, if I was getting a video that was an hour long, I might tend to skip through it more, if that makes sense. I'm sure many of you will skip through my videos. I don't expect everybody will be watching it all the way through, but in smaller 20-minute chunks, I think that people can sit down and watch it all in one go and maybe appreciate it more. So, you know, I work really hard on making a whole episodes, but if I had that all in just one video, I feel like people might not take the time as much to watch it all the way through, and it would be a shame because, you know, I work really hard on it and I want as many people to see it as possible. But yeah, the reason for parts is basically so I can get it out more frequently every week so that people don't forget storylines, for example. But as I said, after WrestleMania 3, episodes will be less frequent, but I'll still try and use things like Twitter and Instagram and the website to do write-ups and add more photos and storyline progression and things like that. After the draft, it's going to be completely the same as it always has been. NLW will be 3 parts, Metal will be 1 part. Because the format of Metal is highlights, it allows me to condense that all into one episode, although Metal episodes will probably be longer after the draft. And yeah, since it's only going to be going for a couple more months, I'm going to keep the format the way it is, and then change once WrestleMania 3 is over. I do want to keep it going, and it will probably be something like each month that I'll upload a video, maybe even like fortnightly, if I can get my schedule right. I might try and get a couple of episodes backlogged, so I'll be able to release them more frequently, maybe every 3 weeks or something like that, and then do like a write-up to accompany it up on the website, and do it like an e-fed, that kind of thing. I originally actually wanted to stop it dead on WrestleMania 3, but because of the fact that a lot of people don't want it to see it end, and the fact that I just really enjoy doing it and writing storylines and things like that, I'm going to continue it on, just not as frequently. As for how long that'll go on, I hope it'll go on as long as possible. I don't think NLW will ever end completely, because I always want to upload something, do you know what I mean? I actually kind of want to make it, as I said, a hybrid of stop motion and pick fed, so maybe the main event or a couple of key points will be in stop motion form, like highlights of matches, things like that. Almost like a weekly roundup of storylines so that I can upload pictures, maybe like a pick fed on things like Instagram, maybe YouTube, and then just write like a more detailed article on, I don't know, like a website, or maybe even in the description of a video. Like, for example, at the moment in NLW, you could have Shawn Michaels vs CM Punk as the main rivalry. If they had a match on an episode, I'd have highlights of that in stop motion form, but maybe like an undercard match, I could have just pictures and highlights and things like that. I would like to think the gaps aren't going to be too long, maybe a month, maybe even 3 weeks, but the content of the episodes will be a lot less. So as I say, it'll be like stop motion highlights and pick fed, that kind of thing. So it's less straining to do, but I like to do the storyline aspect. And there would still be, I would plan on doing special events like pay-per-views, which are completely stop motion, but they would take longer to do, whilst I can still put out content for you that you can watch and keep up with the stories. I'm going to upload a list of the rules for the draft on my Instagram, but as for championships, I can say that the NLW, the women's and the tag titles will be joint branded, whereas smaller titles like the Intercontinental, Hardcore and things like that will be brand exclusive. But that could change in the future. At this moment, I don't want to add another title belt to NLW just because I think there's so many champions that there are at the moment. I think I've got it at a good number. Maybe when I start doing less frequent episodes, a Metal Championship might be good, just so that storyline can progress on over a longer period of time. Women and tag division, I'm planning on having spread across both brands so that the champions can travel back and forth between shows and defend their titles on both shows so they can have fresh matches with whoever. I don't want to segregate one division on one show and one division on the other. I'd rather have it combined in. The plan at the moment is to have one NLW champion, but after WrestleMania, I might bring in a Metal Exclusive Championship based on what I said, the fact that episodes won't be out as frequently, so it can give that show something relevant and something interesting to watch. I'd say that The Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, CM Punk, AJ Styles, and Sting are my favourite NLW wrestlers. It goes to show why I put the NLW title on all of them. That might actually be a good idea to do a Hall of Fame. I was planning on doing it quite a while ago, but this year in the Slammies, rather than having people vote in a wrestler to NLW, I might actually have them vote for who they want to be the first inductee into the Hall of Fame. That's a great question. Maybe you can smell a debut coming down the line. I asked quite a while back whether people wanted me to type up promos or actually say the promos, and a lot of people said to speak it. I'm terrible at impressions. I feel that when I'm talking, I'm doing it spontaneously, so it's more in the moment. You can also sense my tone of voice. I can do Shawn Michaels' voice alright, I can do Bray Wyatt's and Stone Cold's. Most of them I can't, but I feel it's better than typing up the promos because that sort of takes away a little bit of the emotion of it. Maybe that sounds pretentious, I don't know, but when I'm speaking, I'm doing it spontaneously, I'm getting the points across. And I feel like if I typed it up, it would be a little bit bland, if you see what I mean. You say if Vince says, so I'm assuming you mean WWE people. So 5 men, 4 women. If I was picking a new brand for NLW as a real life thing, I'd pick Cesaro, I'd pick Samoa Joe, AJ Styles, Sami Zayn, and Kevin Owens. And for women, I'd pick Charlotte, Asuka, Kairi Sane, and Becky Lynch. I just think that's a solid base to build up a decent product. Favourite match I ever made would be probably either the Triple Cage, any of the Royal Rumbles, because of how long they took to make. The Elimination Chambers as well. I actually really like Kurt Angle vs Daniel Bryan from Insurgents. I think I did quite well on that one. I was proud of that. And also the Fatal 4-Way from Insurgents as well. Those are more recent, but anything in the past that took a while to make, like the Iron Man match between CM Punk and AJ Styles, the Triple Cage, any of the Hell in a Cells, any big match that I've done, I'm quite proud of because of the work I put into it. But I don't think you're going to be seeing my face anytime soon. I mean, do you count Kurt Angle and Triple H? It seems like anybody's joining the Shield these days, but yeah, I always really like Seth Rollins out of those three. I started NLW because I saw a lot of inspiration from people like LKS and JWS and Steve-O back in the day who did wrestling stop motions, and I wanted to try it out. I did a couple before the first episode of NLW, which were really bad, but I don't know where the hell they are. I must have lost them, but I made it because I liked to fantasy book and do my own storylines and matches. That's something I really enjoyed. That's why I used to really enjoy the GM mode on SmackDown vs Raw, just to make shows. And yeah, it was more of a fantasy booking thing more than anything rather than stop motion, but I've improved, and there's still improvement to go obviously, but I think it's at a good place now. The pay-per-view after the Royal Rumble Desolation is going to be joint branded, as is WrestleMania obviously, but after the draft and after WrestleMania, I'm thinking single branded pay-per-views for those special events and maybe a couple co-branded for like the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania, if I even get that far. But yeah, and as for War Games going to NXT, I think that's great, but they clearly heard that I was going to do it at Desolation and they obviously copied me. Why else would they do it? The hardest type of match to animate? A Royal Rumble probably, because you've got to get the time intervals right, and something like 175 pictures I take per minute, so I had to take that into account each time. Anything like a street fight where you have to have the weapons being held because it's difficult to move them and have them not fall over with the weapons in their hands and things like that. And multi-man matches, like the Royal Rumble match between the Bullet Club and the Riot Squad, that was quite difficult because I had to consider how 6 of them were going to interact with each other. But yeah, anything with a cage as well is quite fiddly. What match would I love to do in NLW that hasn't happened yet with my current roster? I've done quite a few of them actually, but I guess any answer I give would be like a spoiler really, but I like to integrate Sting into a match somewhere, and maybe Stone Cold as well. I want to have more legend matches perhaps in the future when I do less frequent episodes to make those episodes feel more special. At the end of the day, as corny as it sounds, it's not about how much money you make from it, although in some cases it is. It's about how much enjoyment it gives you, and I really enjoy making an NLW, and I did look into trying to make money from it a while back, but obviously I don't have enough subs to make a living out of it, probably never would. But just the fact that you enjoy it, people enjoy it, is enough for me, and as a hobby I enjoy it, so there's no point getting money from it, It is, all the quality of it, recent seasons haven't been great, but still one of my favourite programmes. Breaking Bad I got through in about 3 weeks, non-stop. BoJack Horseman's really good. Things like the IT Crowd and Father Ted as well are really funny. Yeah, I watch a lot of TV, so the list could go on, aside from wrestling obviously. I'll tell you what gives me motivation is watching other people do stop motions and things like that. A couple of weeks ago I wasn't really feeling it, but I suddenly got into MDT. I know most of you watch him. Incredibly slick pick fed. Off the top of my head, I can't really think of many, but there are so many out there, and I'm sure you know them. But yeah, just watching other people getting tips and advice is good motivation, and also watching wrestling to say, you know, maybe you watch wrestling and say, you know, I could do something better, or I could do something interesting that they haven't thought of. Do you know what I mean? I've got quite a few. I've got maybe 14 perhaps. It's obviously not that many, but I hope to bring some more in when I'm getting closer to WrestleMania. Favourite wrestler outside of WWE kind of has to be Kenny Omega. I mean, I really got into New Japan Wrestling this year. I did struggle in the past to get into it, but this year has been just incredible in New Japan, and Kenny Omega has a fantastic match on almost every card he's on. I also really love Los Ingobernables, like Naito, Takahashi, Sanada, Evil Bushi, all of them. That's my favourite stable as well. My favourite figure is the Shawn Michaels, which is why I use it so frequently. Just the movement of it is really good for animations. It stands up well, and even though I've had it for like 5 years now, it's still in good condition and it still works really well. If I had one figure to get rid of, I guess I would say, and this isn't like a dig, but, you know, Jeff Hardy, because obviously the fact that it's a Jax figure doesn't really fit in with Mattel. And I know they're bringing out Mattel Hardys, which I would like to get in the future and use them. But yeah, any Jax figures I'd like to get rid of, like Kurt Angle maybe, but although he's a good figure. But yeah, they're also bringing out a Mattel Kurt Angle, so I'd like to get that, just so that they fit in more. I don't use every figure I have for NLW. I used to, but then I went into a phase. I say a phase. There was about a month period where I was basically buying loads of figures cheap so I could build up the show, and I haven't got around to using them. I've got like, got a Lex Luger figure, but I don't know if that's, he's going to fit into NLW. Maybe at some day I'll find a way to put him in, but yeah, I've got a few stored away and a few that I'm waiting to debut. This is a tough one. My favourite storyline, I would say, would be the NWO one. Even though it's a tired trope, the invasion, I think that eventually I was able to pick and choose a couple of people in and out of that, and then build several storylines within that one rivalry. For example, R-Truth with the IC title, the tag titles with Kevin Nash and The Big Show, and the main event of Shawn Michaels as well. So even though the invasion shtick has been done to death, I feel like the NWO invasion was my favourite storyline. If you go back on my last Q&A, or is it my behind the scenes, you can see my figure collection. I haven't added that many, but if I did show you an updated figure collection, it would spoil who I'm going to plan on bringing into debut. So that'll be a secret for now. I think Sting's great, but who can argue against David Arquette as the best WCW champion of all time? Which superstar do I want to bring into NLW? I can say this without a spoiler because I don't have a custom of the guy, but any of the Japan guys like Okada, Tanahashi, because I know that few people use those guys, and I think that would make my show more unique in that sense. Yeah, and a bunch of independent wrestlers like Michael Elgin, for example, or Zack Sabre Jr. maybe, just to name a few that I don't have customs of that I would bring into NLW if I had the chance. Man, that 30-man rumble was hell enough. Can't imagine doing a 40-man rumble. Like, that would just be insane. I think it might be a little bit overkill as well, because I think an attention span, you know, is focused on 30 people, and I think if I did more, it would get a bit boring. If I did it, at least. I got the WWE Network last year, and I must have watched, like, hours and hours, days of wrestling, in fact. Because I started watching ECW from 1995 as well as Nitro, and I've actually nearly finished Nitro. A year ago I started watching it from 1995, and now I'm halfway through 2000, so I've watched a lot of wrestling. And you can just pick and choose things from the past, because nothing's original anymore. And you know, you can tweak elements. Also, by making good storylines, I guess you need to have fresh matches. My tactic in NLW is to put people together that haven't been wrestled before, rather. So, for example, Kurt Angle and Daniel Bryan, they haven't wrestled together. Batista and Brock Lesnar didn't have a high-profile wrestling match. Because if I did, well, I used to do like John Cena versus Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker versus Triple H, and those matches have been done to death. And now I've gotten to a stage where I'm trying to do more fantasy matchups so that they're unique to No Limits Wrestling. And also to make good storylines, whether you're doing it on your own or you're sharing it with, you know, on YouTube, responding to an audience. So I listen to what people comment, what people like, what people don't like, and I tweak my shows based on that. If you want to start your stop motion show, keep it simple is what I would say. Practice single animations first, like finishers and things like that, just to get into the groove of things. When you're doing entrances as well, like basic things like pointing or nodding of the head for like between shots so that they're not stood still or acting awkwardly, because I used to do just like still shots between action sequences, and that wasn't looking good, but I've changed it now, so even if it's something like pointing over somewhere or just looking in a different direction, you know, keep the flow going is what I would say. Keep it simple, keep it down to half a dozen to a dozen wrestlers. Also, presentation and lighting are important. And an example, I promise I'm not being paid by MDT to plug his show, but the lighting in that is very good. The camera angles are very good as well. Framing his shots as well is really important. If you want to know how I make my stop motions, I did a behind the scenes a couple months ago that you can check out. That basically goes through everything that I've done, how my process works, how I edit things together, how I animate the matches, how I come up with storylines. So that behind the scenes video I did can show you the process of how I make my stop motions. As I said, if you're starting out, keep it simple, do some single animations. Also, what I didn't mention before, if you go onto YouTube, type in a move like the pedigree, look at it frame by frame and see how they actually move. So maybe it's even the way the legs move. So do they flail up in the air? Because, you know, if you're doing a clothesline, for example, if you're animating a clothesline, don't just have the wrestler fall straight backwards. Have them move their arms up in the air maybe, or move 1 foot in the air or something like that. And also the way they hit the canvas, so there's an impact. Their body might hit the mat and then bounce off of it. Just little things like that make the animations better. But I'm not the best at tutorials. There's a bunch of them out there that you can look at. Because I'm a shy person. And I don't think there's any necessarily good reason for me showing my face to people. It's not that I'm ugly, but, you know, just don't really want to see, have my face, out there, really. The most expensive figure I've probably bought is that Shinsuke Nakamura that you saw in the Royal Rumble. That was about 30 quid. I don't think I've spent any more than 30 quid on a figure before, but I just really wanted that Nakamura. Actually, the metal stage is from a SmackDown set from back in the day, which was Jack's, and that's like the SmackDown Fist set. And I've modified that for metal, and I used to modify that for NLW. The way I make my stage, basically, the NLW one, it's half a cardboard box with bits and pieces cut out of it, curved around, and then just a big cardboard piece placed on top. I'm not sure if I did tutorials on my old stages, but that's how I've made the current one. My favourite NLW episode would probably be episode 13. I know that's a while back, but I remember a lot of stuff happening on that one. I had a tables match, I had a cool hardcore match, a cool skit at the beginning with Triple H and The Undertaker. Oh, and of course, the Extreme Reunion episode, which I made a Hammerstein Ballroom arena for. That was episode 37, I think. And that was a bunch of ECW people mixed in with NLW people. And I actually made the Hammerstein Ballroom set. And that's probably my proudest one that I've done. When thinking about storylines, I think about matches that haven't happened before. So like you said, Bray Wyatt and Sting, I feel like they're both supernatural characters in a way. So they'd be a good mesh. Maybe thinking of tag teams like the Brood. I'm just thinking of people that I've got, you know, back in my mind. And also, if I'm watching a wrestling event and I see a team I like, I try and get wrestlers that maybe replicate them, or maybe they are them, and put them in. So it's basically me seeing things I like, jotting down notes, and then trying to fit it in somewhere. I think in my behind the scenes I explained it a little bit better. But yeah, the main focus of my storylines is to do things that do matches rather that haven't happened before. As I'm recording this to you right now, I am actually in the process of making Desolation. I know I'm so far ahead. I don't know how many of the weeks that would be. I guess it's in February. I'm animating for February, but I haven't actually edited together the pictures for 4 weeks in advance. So what I'm trying to do is get as many episodes done and in the bank as possible so that I can upload them weekly and then eventually take a break for a month or two. I appreciate that you want to send me figures, and I appreciate that people want to send me stuff, but I don't want to, you know, take from people without giving you anything else. But I don't think I will do fan mail, but the fact that you comment and things like that, you know, I appreciate that. But I appreciate the fact you want to send me stuff, so thank you. Favourite wrestler of all time? I would say Daniel Bryan, just based off of pure frustration from watching WWE in 2013 and then him getting squashed and eventually rising up again. A lot of people call him overrated. I think he's just a nice guy. That's why I really like him. Longest match I've done would be one of the Royal Rumbles. They're going on 40 minutes plus. Other than that, the Iron Man match was 30 minutes. The Elimination Chambers go nearly 30 minutes. The main event of WrestleMania 2 was about 23 minutes, so that was one of the longest matches I've done to that point. But yeah, any Hell in the Cells, big matches, things like that. Mainly the Royal Rumbles are the longest matches I've done. I did say that, and I got one or two done, and then I just forgot about it. So I might upload them to my Instagram, just to show you. But rather than single animations frequently as I planned to do, I don't know, I gave up on them. I will upload the ones that I did do onto Instagram, but there might be some more single animations in future when episodes are less frequent, let's say. The Royal Rumble 3 actually took 4 days, so that's not including editing it together. Editing it together was maybe 2 days, and I don't know how approximately it worked out, but I know that there are thousands and thousands of pictures I had to put together and render them in separate videos so that they were going along smoothly. And also, considering it was a 40-minute match, my voice was knackered at the end, so it took a long time. That's why there's only been 3 in history. people like the Shield, so yeah, it was a good idea. You know, if it gets people to cheer Roman Reigns, which I doubt it, but, you know, what can you do? They're a good faction, and it's good to see them back together. Well, they'll get back together eventually once Roman's back. Perfectly honest, not a lot. I work, I watch TV, I watch wrestling and things like that. Sometimes I go out, but other than that, it's mostly NLW, because that's what I enjoy. That's a main hobby of mine, and that's why there's so much of it, is because I just enjoy doing it. I mean, he's already lost the title, hasn't he? So, I mean, it was fun while it lasted, I suppose. I don't like buying more updated figures of the ones I've got if they work perfectly fine. For example, Shawn Michaels, it's the same Shawn Michaels I've had for years, but it works fine, so I don't see the need to buy a new one. If a figure gets broken, for example, Batista had a loose arm, I bought a new Batista, and AJ Styles I updated from Jax to Mattel, but other than that, I don't really see the need to update the figures. My favourite part about NLW is either actually editing it together and watching it back as a show, or probably putting it out there and seeing what people think of it. Like, I enjoy the comments. That's probably my favourite part about NLW, is the responses I get. I showed off my customs in my last Q&A on my behind the scenes, I think. The Young Bucks are the Rockers figures with Hardy's hair and just paint on the legs. Adam Cole's a Chris Jericho that I painted over. Pentagon Jr. is a mixture of Rey Mysterio and Edge of Jax. I'm not the best person when it comes to customs, but they work fine. Least favourite match in NLW history? I'm not quite sure. I know it sounds smug, but I don't really have a least favourite NLW episode or anything. I would say least favourite storyline and things like that are things like Triple H vs Shawn Michaels. Even though they played out okay, it had already been done to death in WWE, and that's why I moved away from doing matches that had already been done and moved towards fantasy matches. But I can tell you what my least favourite match event and superstars are in real life. I'm trying to think what my least favourite match was. I know that there are a couple that I've just been pulling my hair out because of how bad they were. Roman Reigns vs Triple H was a bad one. Event Battleground from this year was pretty bad, but I don't want to go that far as it's the worst in history for me. But yeah, least favourite superstar? Don't really have a least favourite, to be honest. Oh wait, no, I do. Sorry, Jinder, obviously. No offence to the Maharaja intended. Most of my figures I get from Smith's Toy Store tend to be quite reasonably priced. Sometimes Toys R Us, sometimes eBay as well. The camera I use is called a Canon PowerShot A2300 HD, and I just pray that it doesn't break. How do I deal with putting so much time into it? I don't really think I deal with it. I think that if I enjoy it and I'm feeling up for animating, I'll animate. If there's days where I just, you know, don't want to do anything, I won't animate. You know, I'm not in a position where I'm behind on the schedule. Like, you know, I'm well far ahead in terms of animating. So if I ever do feel down or like not motivated, I can take a week break or a couple weeks break and it won't affect my uploading schedule. And for the blood, it's a red fine liner pen. You can just rub it on and then make sure you don't leave it on for too long. Wash it off after every hour or so and then apply something new so it doesn't stain the figures. I remember I have watched wrestling since Unforgiven 2006 because I remember the first match I watched was on TV and it was John Cena versus Lita, funny enough. And I do not watch Grimm's Toy Show, but he does seem like a character, so good on him. I'm very happy with how far I've come with NLW. Like, it was, I didn't expect to come this far when I'd started it, and maybe that's a good thing. Like, the fact that I've improved so much, and now it's actually allowed me to go on and do animation further on at university, based off of what I started with this, and then it led me on to getting more interested in animations and cartoons and things like that. And hopefully I can have a career in it. So that's it for now. I'm sorry if I didn't get round to answering your question. If you want to ask it again, leave it in the comments and I'll try and answer it as best I can. I'll do a couple of quick plugs to my website. I'm going to update it after the draft so that it's got the full draft rosters on it when that happens. And also, I do write-ups of the episodes I've done. I've also got a schedule over there, which I'm going to update eventually, of when NLW episodes will come out. My Instagram, I post pictures storyline-wise of what's going on in NLW, and it also helps the storyline, so it's worth a follow there. Also, my Twitter, I'm not using it as much as I want to. I'm hoping that once I get more followers, I'll be able to update people more regularly, and then people will see that, and then I'll be able to use it more because more people will be seeing updates and things like that, so that's also worth following. As for others, Dynamic Art Effects on Instagram, they did my logo, and they've done a couple of logos for me in the past, including an upcoming event which I'll let you know about in the future. And AFX Wrestling, they do the music for me, the dubbed themes and the cover themes, so they'll upload NLW themes as they happen. And apart from that, that's it from me. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you later.